most people that are in, committed self-development, I don't watch a whole lot of television. But what I do watch is ESPN for sports, and then I would watch Larry King Live, not Larry King, I would watch Anderson Cooper for the news, right? And so I'm surfing from the news to ESPN, and I see this title, this called Yellowstone Battle for Life. And I said, well, man, that's what I'm in. I'm in a battle for life. So let me watch this. And for the next hour, I sat in awe. Now, I grew up in the inner city of New Orleans. I've never watched an Animal Planet story or nothing about animals in my life.
Yeah.
Okay? And what this documentary is about Yellowstone National Park. And what it showed was that it showed all of the animals that are in Yellowstone National Park. And it took them through the seasons. And it starts out in the springtime. And springtime in Yellowstone National Park is great, man. Everything's festive, everything's alive. Everything is great. Life is good for the animals.
New babies out.
All of that. But during the winter time is when the animals are in a battle for their freaking life, right? And it shows all these animals, man. It shows the bisons, it shows buffaloes, it shows squirrels, they show deer, they show foxes, they show all the animals. And so I sat there and, bro, I've never watched Animal Planet, nothing in my life. And so I sat there, and then for an hour, I'm in awe. After that, I walked away, and there were 6 key things that I learned. Okay, the first one was that the fact that in order for any animal to survive in Yellowstone National Park, as it is for us in Primerica or in life, is that number one, in order for an animal to survive, they had to stay with the herd, right? That in order to survive in Yellowstone National Park, no matter what type of animal you are, in order for you to survive, you got to stay with the herd, and that's how it is in Primerica, right? Is that if you're gonna win here, as you and I know, you got to stay in alignment with your upline. You got to move. You got right. Yeah. Okay, so you got to stay in alignment. Second thing that I observed was that the weak become food for another animal. That life doesn't care. That life doesn't care if the animal is young or if it's old. Is that if you're weak, you're gonna become food for another animal. And that's how it is in life, and that's how it is in Primerica. That if you're weak in your thinking, you're going to become food. Was the second observation. That life didn't care. The third observation was a statement that the moderator stated. And the moderator says that, look, in the hardest of times, in the winter time, I see in the spring and the summer, man, life is good, everything's going wonderful. But in the hardest of times, all these lakes in Yellowstone freeze. And the statement he made was, in the wintertime, the only water that runs is fast-running water. All standing water freezes. And I said, man, that's how it is in life. See, when you got difficulties coming at you, you got the bill collectors, you got the naysayers, the doubters, you got challenges in life. The only way you're going to keep moving is you got to keep running. If you stay still, then you're going to freeze, and life is going to be difficult. So what you got to do is when the challenges are coming, you got to keep moving. You got to keep prospecting. You got to keep setting appointments. You got to keep moving. If not, you'll freeze, and you'll get caught up in the difficulty of your circumstances. Number 4 is that all animals in Yellowstone National Park, every last one of them, Charles, every last one of them in Yellowstone National Park, all of them prepared for the tough times. All of them stored up for the winter. So they showed how
they ain't read no book.
Look, bro,
they ain't
read no
class.
They showed how the beavers, what they would do is that they would eat in the spring and the winter. I mean, in the summer and the spring, but what they would do is every time they would eat, they take some of the branch and they go down into the bay of the river and they put it over there. That would be their food source for the winter time. They showed how these pine squirrels, right, they would go and they would get the nuts, the pines, but they would bury some of them for the winter time. Every animal in Yellowstone National Park prepared for the
They didn't eat it all like they were crazy.
They prepared for the winter time, the tough times. So we got to do the same thing. Is that, man, when life is going good, you got to prepare for the tough seasons. Why? They coming. That was my fourth observation. The fifth was that the way in which, you know, here's another thing I learned from that is that, man, the way in which big animals, small animals would kill big animals is they would hunt them in packs. And I related this to Primerica is that, man, see, life is all about competition. I'm going to talk about competition in a minute. And but way wolves would hunt bisons, which are 500-pound animals, and these big deer, what they would do is they'd hunt them in packs. How you kill something big is you hunt them in packs. So if you got a small team in Primerica, but you want to beat a big team, what you got to do is you got to hunt them in packs. You take 5 or 6 little people and say, okay, we're going to go up against this big, huge guy, and we're going to hunt him, right? And we're just going to keep after him and keep after him. The way in which the wolves beat the big animals is they hunt them in packs. And then the next observation, the sixth one, was that all the animals in Yellowstone. See, I thought this competition was just something that athletes did. And then when I watched this documentary, I realized that competition is so important that God put in the universe that even animals got to do it. Man, they would show how these rams would come every season, every year, would come from all over Yellowstone Park at the same time every season, and they start competing. Man, these rams would butt heads. They showed how you know, so every animal had, this is important what I'm about to tell you now. So they showed how maybe with the deer, you know, you'd have this big buck, and he was the king of their group, right?
Alpha male.
Right. Okay, so he was the alpha male, and then you'd have this other little young buck decides he wants to take his position, right? And so they would go and they would fight, and whoever would win had the right to pass on their genes to the next generation. Right. Immediately, Charles, after the buck would win, he'd go impregnate a female. Immediately. And I looked at it, I said, man, well, that's how life is. Now, not from that standpoint, but if I go win for my family, like you won for yours, it gives you the right to pass your thinking on down to the next generation. Man, that's big crap. See, I have the right because I went and won for the Thomas family where nobody else did. I have the right to indoctrinate them nephews, them nieces with my thinking for success. And that's big crap for me, man. Right. And then number 7, the 7th point was, and then from there I came up with these 4 laws of what I call the 4 laws of competition. Is that what I've observed about competition is that in competition, law number 1 is somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose, right? In competition. Number 2 is that competition makes everybody better. Man, we've got to compete. Man, I tell a story how right after Katrina, Home Depot had one store on the West Bank of New Orleans. And this one store served the entire West Bank. Man, I'd go into a Home Depot and it'd be half clean. You know, people talk to you any kind of way. Lowe's put a store right across the street from Home Depot, and then all of a sudden, man, you walk in the Home Clean, the people were talking to you better. Why? Because competition forced them to get better.
Absolutely.
Right? It forces everybody to get better.
I watch it when I walk with my buddy. If I walk by myself, it becomes monotonous, but when I walk with her, boy, my energy is sore.
Isn't that something? Isn't that something?
Yeah,
isn't that something? Yeah, isn't that something? And then so everybody's got to. And then the third observation about competition is that all the spoils go to the victor. That when you win, you get it all, man. If you know the story of David and Goliath, I mean, so David was a little shepherd kid, and the prophet Saul was sent to anoint somebody to be king, right? The Israelites wanted a king. Prior to this point, they wanted a king. So God sent Samuel there to anoint the king. So he goes through all the brothers, and he finds this little kid, right? He's the baby of the crew, kind of like you are, Charles. right? He's a baby of the group. And so God anoints him to be king. And so he's taking up some food to his brothers who's fighting Goliath. And King Saul says, I will give houses, land, freedom, fame, money, and my daughter to anybody that defeats the giant. Okay, now he reneged on the daughter part. But he said, this is all I'll give to the person that defeats the giant. David said, what did the king say? He said he'd give houses. So that was his motivation, right? And so, you know, the story goes, defeats the lion, and all the spoils go to the victor, right? And then the last law of competition, law number 4, is that you got to compete again in competition. Man, we don't celebrate the winners forever. Man, the Saints right now in my city, the Saints are all excited. We had a decent, real good year last year. They think this might be another Super Bowl run, right? Well, we won a Super Bowl as an NFL team in 2009, right? Well, we ain't celebrating. Everybody ain't celebrating because they won that. Man, they got to go do it again. Whoever won last year's got to go compete again. In competition, got to compete again. And then the 7th thing that I learned from Yellowstone Battle for Life was number 7 is every animal in Yellowstone National Park, as in life, has got to fight for survival. Every day we got to get up and we got to fight for survival.
I agree.
Yes, sir. So these are 7 things that I learned from watching the documentary.
Isn't that amazing?
Yellowstone Battle for Life.
Yellowstone Battle?
The Yellowstone Battle for Life.
It's about life. It's really... It's called Yellowstone. It shows what happened at Yellowstone Park. But it's really a battle for anything that's living in life. Whether you're a human, dog, doesn't matter. The principles, again, it proves that all the principles are the same.
All the laws are the same.
They're the same.
They're the same.
They are the same.
Right. And so, but because you and I won, so all of that came from me talking about that today, is the fact that because you go out and win, you have the right to pass on your thinking, your way of life, your attitudes, your perspectives on to the next generation to follow.
Yeah, you're right.
And better ours because we won than the losers that didn't.
Yeah.
The philosophers.
Preference.
Right?
Yeah.
The thoughts.
That's right. I agree with that. Because the weird thing is, the sad part is, because the humans have the right to say, you know what, I don't want to hear what you got to say.
Free will.
That's
free
good.
will.
That's free will. Or one of the biggest things that it doesn't hurt me. It used to bother me, but it never really hurt me. It bothered me is that I've got tons of family members, nieces, nephews, cousins, aunts, uncles. But the vast majority of them, probably 95%, 97%, have never said, have never said, hey, will you sit down and tell me how you did what you did? How did you get that done? Will you share with me some of your thoughts? What did you do to have this sort of a life available to you? Never ask. Never ask. Never ask. I got strangers that come up to me, like somebody we were at the meeting last night, saying, man, it's meant you. Can I get your number so I can call you? You can tell me some of the things that you've done. I said, I'm not going to bother you live, but I just want to know some of the things you've done. And I don't typically give out my phone number to people like that. But I gave this person a number because it was so appealing. Her presentation was so honest. But my family doesn't do that. Don't ask. I watch them sometimes. I mean, I know they go through issues. Life has its way of doing what it does. But they don't ask. They don't say, can you teach me how to make a fire? Because it's cold out here. Can you teach me how to make a fire? Quit crying, honey. Quit crying, honey. Someone how to make a fire, then they got a better chance of surviving. If you can teach somebody how to find water, then they got a better chance of surviving. But they don't ask.
Yeah, and that goes back to the first the first principle that I'm teaching in that book that I'm teaching, the God system, is that you gotta ask.
Going back home?
Yeah, you gotta ask. You gotta ask for what you want.
Oh, very
Ask.
nice.
They don't.
Yeah.
And it used to bother me more. I still stay very good.
Yeah.
Are we good?
Because I haven't said, if you ask me, no, I'm not telling you what I know. So I'll tell you what I know, but no ask.
Here's some more balcony. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. I'm good.
All right, baby, this is what they do.
No, that's a record this separate thing. Just go through the principles, the basic laws, and a brief description of the laws of the mind power. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and so John Kehoe, the author of Mind Power, teaches the fact that he states the fact that everything is governed by law in this universe, and we know that to be true. The law of gravity works for you or against you, right? And so he says, law of electricity, that everything is in this universe is governed by. We don't know them in all a law in all of its dimensions. We only know a part of it, right? And but he says, look, if it's safe to say that everything in this universe is governed by law, isn't it safe to say then that our mind has certain laws? And then when we think about it, that would be safe to say that our mind has certain laws. Then he asks the question, well, what are they? And 99.99% of the time when I ask this question to an audience, they're dumbfounded just like I was. I'm like, I don't know. He says, well, why? Because nobody teaches it to them. The churches don't teach them to you. The schools don't teach them to you, right? Your parents don't teach it to them. And so he says, okay, well, there's certain, I've studied this stuff, and there's certain laws, and there are 6 of them that he teaches. And the first one, law number 1, is that thoughts are real forces. That these things that we have as thought aren't just random ideas or things that occur. No, thought are real forces. That the things that we think about are literally forces that become things. Law number 2 is a law of transmission. That he says, look, your mind, you're no more your mind than you are your arm. That your mind is just a function and a fraction of your body. And he says, look, your mind is, he calls it the great trickster. And he says, look, the only purpose of the mind is for the sending and receiving of thought. Now think about that for a minute. And he says, look, it doesn't matter if the thoughts are true or false. The only purpose of the mind is to send and receive thought. And he says, look, your mind, he calls it the great trickster. He says, your mind will lie to you and tell you that you have limitations that don't exist. And I thought about it and I say, that's so true. See, your mind will tell you that you can't do things that you have the ability to do. For example, I use the analogy of how when my daughter was turning 21 a couple years ago, I asked her, Jordan, I said, Jordan, what would you like to do for your birthday? And she says, well, I like to jump out of an airplane. I said, okay, well, great, I'll do that with you. So what we did on her birthday, me, her, and her sister, we get in an airplane, we go up 14,000 feet in the air. We have a life jacket, we have a guy strapped to our back. They open up the door, and the guy says, on 3, we're going to jump out the airplane. So what he does is he has you hold on, and it says, on 1 you rock, 2 you rock, and you're out of the plane. And so when we got to the last, I said, man, why'd you rock me out? Why do we leave on 2 and not 3? He says, well, on 3, everybody holds on, right? All right. So we jump out of the airplane. But when I do a seminar, I talk to people, I say, man, would you jump out of the plane? People immediately say, man, I can't do that. And I say, no, your mind is lying to you. Yes, you can. How do I know? Because I did it. And my 2 daughters did it. You can jump out of an airplane. But your mind will tell you have limitations that you don't exist.
What if you just don't want to?
Well, but people don't say I don't want to jump out of an airplane. They say I can't jump out of a plane. People don't say I don't want to be rich. They say I can't be rich. People say, they want all this stuff, but I can't do that. Well, the point is that your mind will tell you have limitations that you don't exist. You can be, do, and have whatever you want once you learn how to control thought. Okay? And then law number 3 is the law of attraction. Now he teaches the law of attraction a little differently in that he says, look, any thought that is emotionalized is like a magnet. It's magnetized and it attracts like thought. Now let's think about it for a minute. You ever had a bad day when you get this bad feeling from something, and all of a sudden you start thinking about all this other negative stuff? Well, what happened was that one negative thought with emotion attracted other negative thoughts, and before you know, it's a spiraling effect, and you're having a terrible day. But you ever had a good thought something good, and all of a sudden you start thinking about all the other good stuff that's happening?
That's why the pen I created years and years ago, I chose happy today.
I choose happy today.
That's right. I chose meaning past tense.
Right.
That's why the pen was. I chose happy today.
Absolutely.
With a little smile. That's the purpose of that.
Yeah. Right? And then after that, man, you think about what's happening, all the happy, all other stuff comes to you.
Hold on for a second. You know the weird part is, and here's the weird part. Well, I don't believe there's anything new under the sun.
Correct.
Just the things being discovered or understood. We've been doing this type and the other sort, the Yellowstone stuff. We've been doing it forever. That's where you got to work. Now that you get that documentary and this gentleman Kehoe, Napoleon Hill, because people were successful before Napoleon Hill.
Absolutely.
He just went and studied them and found the universal rules. That the rules, as you said, there are rules in law that don't change.
That's right.
It's been this way since man been on earth.
Absolutely.
Whether you believe it came from God or just came from wherever, it's been the rules.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Then law number 4 is the law of control. It says that, look, you have the right to control your mind. That you have the right to think any thought that you have. Just because you have a negative thought doesn't mean that you have to keep it. You have the right to control it, your mind. And we know that to be true. We see our president, man. He doesn't care. He doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to him what anybody else thinks. He has the right to control his mind and think whatever he wants.
And he sure does.
He does whatever he
Proves
don't care.
he's free will.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care about what you right. And then law number 5 is the law of insertion. That you have the right to insert any thought into your mind that you so desire. So if you find a thought that isn't serving you, if you got a condition that is not serving you, then you understand that this situation is so because of my thoughts. And that if I make a decision to go change the way I think, I can change the result.
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, I got maybe my health isn't serving me. Well, my health isn't serving me because of the thoughts that I had. What were the thoughts that caused the conditions that I'm in to occur? Maybe it was the food that I ate, my lack of decision to take exercise, to force myself to do the things that are necessary to change it. Once I recognize that, then I can go back and I can find a thought that will serve me and put that thought into my thinking, and I'll get the result that I desire. Okay? And then law number 6 is the law of connection. That says that, look, we literally live simultaneously in 2 worlds. The outer world of our circumstances, our conditions, the experiences that we're having right now, and our inner world. And the fact that most people respond in their inner world to their outer world conditions. So if this is happening and this isn't good, then this is how I respond on the inside emotionally. And he teaches, and he's correct, that literally it's our inner world that controls and manifests the outer world, right? And so we simultaneously live in 2 worlds, and what we've got to do is learn how to control the inner world, because the inner world thinking manifests what we so desire in our outer world. And so of all my years of purchasing books and CDs and seminars and courses, this guy's course, Mind Power, is the best $79 investment that I believe anybody could make. You can go to his website, learnmindpower.com. It's a 6-week course. It forces you that if you do the right, I promise you, if you do the exercises, in 6 weeks you'll grow mentally. Your entire world will change, the way that you think about things, because you will realize and come to the realization that you and I are the creators of our destiny. By 3 things, Charles: by the thoughts that we have, by the words that we speak, and the actions that we take, right? So people sit around, especially Christians, man, I'm waiting on God. And the God system is waiting on you. There was a quote on Facebook that I had once that I posted, and it says, man, life isn't happening to you, it's responding to you. To what? Your thoughts, your words, and your actions. we can be, do, and have whatever we so desire.
I agree with that.